All right, yes, sixes. Let's say good morning, Mr. Matheson, and God bless you.
Good morning. God bless you.
So this is the much-awaited guest. He's here today to talk to us about God, creation, science, and how it all fits together. So I can see you brought your notebooks, which is great because you're going to need to remember some things to record here. You just need to remember record 3 of your favorite things that you learned next to the library. And this is going into your learning journal. But most especially, I just hope that you enjoy the time, that you tune in and learn something new. Yeah, how about you?
All right. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me here. It's good to meet you all. And yes, I'm married to your lovely teacher, Mrs. Matheson. We have 3 wonderful boys. And my involvement in science has been mostly in nanoscience or nanotechnology. Does anyone know what nano means? Yes. Small, really small. Yeah, that's right. If you've got a meter, you divide it by 1,000, you get a millimeter. Divide that by 1,000, you get a micrometer. Divide that by 1,000, you get a nanometer. It's not quite atomic, but it's getting close. To help you understand how small this is, if you pluck one of your hairs, something I have trouble doing, you get one of your hairs, you've got a strand of hair, right? Very thin. You take that hair and you blow it out to 1 meter wide. So the hair is really big now. And nanotechnology, we're working with 1 millimeter. Your hair is 1 meter wide, 1 millimeter. So very, very small. We need special microscopes to see that stuff. You can't use normal microscopes. But we're not here to talk about nanotech, as fun as that would be. We're here to talk about the 2 big ideas about where life came from. One starts with E, one starts with C. What are the 2 big ideas? Yes? Yes? Evolution and creation. Well done. Now this is science, isn't it? So can't we just do a science experiment and figure out which one of these is right? No. I want you to imagine something. Imagine that you've just come across a bucket. The bucket has water in it, it's under a tap, the tap is on. The bucket is nearly full. You look around and there's no one else there, it's just you. And your job is to figure out how long that bucket has been filling up with water for. What can you measure to help you know how long the bucket has been there for? Yes?
Water flow.
The water flow, very good. How quickly the water's coming out of the tap. And one more thing. Some stuff on it, yeah, to see how long it's been sitting in water. Very good.
You could use liters.
Liters, yeah, that's right. The size of the bucket, yes.
So we get a number of the exact same bucket and then we can fill it up with much and graph how long it was.
Very good, very good. All excellent ideas. We can do a lot of science with this. We can measure the mineral composition of the water, we can measure the type of wood, but there's nothing that we can actually measure that will tell us confidently how long the bucket has been there. What if the tap was just dripping for a long time? And then someone came, just before you got there, someone came and turned on the tap and walked away. The bucket's been there for a lot longer. Or what if the bucket was filling up and someone came and tipped some of the water out and put the bucket back? Then they came and tipped some more out and put it back. Maybe they're watering their plants and they forgot to turn off the tap. There is nothing you can measure, no experiment that will tell you how long the bucket has been there. And that's because there are actually 2 types of science that we do. Usually when we talk about science and when you do science, it's this type. We can call it operational science. This is the kind of stuff where you do experiments, you can repeat it, you can watch it happen, you can observe it. It's right there in front of you. You're making a conclusion about the present time. That's normal science. This is stuff that gives us technology, the science that we all know. But there is another type of science. This is called historical science. This is where you're making a conclusion about something in the past, something that you didn't see. It's finished, it's not happening anymore, so you can't repeat it. You weren't there, and so you cannot verify your conclusions. But there is one way to know what happened in the past. It's not through science. Recording. Yeah, good one. An eyewitness. If someone was there when the bucket was put there and they watched the bucket the whole time, maybe they wrote it down. You have an eyewitness. The Bible claims to be God's eyewitness account of how the universe and the world and life all began. It claims to be God's first-hand historical record of what happened. And so if you believe that the Bible is God's word, then maybe that's enough for you. Maybe you're good with that. But maybe it's still a question for you, whether the Bible is God's word. And so let's explore this idea of historical science. You know, a lot of people wonder, well, couldn't God just use evolution? Doesn't that fix everything? No, it actually creates more problems than you started with. We'll just mention one of them briefly. You know, the story of evolution, it has millions of years of death, disease, suffering, with people coming only right at the very end of the story, which means sin only came right at the very end. So if God used evolution, then it means that God loves millions of years of death, disease, and suffering, and that these things are not the result of sin, not the result of our separation from God. And so, is this really the description of who God is and what He's like? No. You can believe that God used evolution, but you don't get the God of the Bible. You get a very different kind of God. A God who's more of a monster. So really, it's not God and evolution, it's God or evolution. It's one or the other. But then people ask another common question. Well, who created God? What do you think? Any ideas? We have a theologian here. That was spot on. Yes? He's been there since the beginning. Now, you probably didn't hear the first answer, but we'll go through it together. Where did the apple come from? An apple tree. Where did the tree come from? A seed. Where did the seed come from? Apple. Yeah, God made the seed eventually. Yeah, so we can keep going back on and on and on. The point is, if something has a beginning, a point in time where it starts, then it needs a cause. It needs something to cause it. Just like the tree caused the apple and the seed caused the tree. But the flip side is also true. If something doesn't have a beginning, then it doesn't have a cause. It doesn't have a creator. So who created God? Well, the question says we don't really understand who God is, because God is eternal. He's everlasting, timeless. He doesn't have a beginning. So the question doesn't really exist. Sorry? There was no in the beginning for God. There was an in the beginning for the universe that He made. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like for us, we don't understand that because I don't know how to explain it, but I think you know what I mean.
Yes, I do know what you mean. He would like to say that God exists outside of time, which, if you like philosophy or physics, is a very cool idea to think about. But let's think about this beginning and cause situation from the evolutionary story. So the evolutionary story says that everything, the whole universe, began at a point in time, and they call it the Big Bang. So if everything came from the Big Bang, then nothing was before the Big Bang. So how can nothing cause anything? Yes? Oh, very good thought. Her question was, did a Christian make the Big Bang theory? A Christian came up with the theory in physics, it's called general relativity, that was used to get the Big Bang. But then to get the Big Bang, you have to make some assumptions. And those assumptions don't really fit with the Bible. Good question. So with the Big Bang, what you've got is you've got nothing somehow caused everything, which is not a very fun. That sounds like a miracle. Except if you believe the Big Bang and you don't believe that God exists, then you've got a miracle without a miracle worker, which is a double problem. Quiz time. We're going to have a quiz along the way. There are two types of science. What are they?
History and
Yes, historical. And present, yeah, another name for the present one. Operational, yeah, very good. Historical and operational. Well done. Which type of science is unverifiable and unobservable? Historical, well done. Which type of science produces new technologies? Operational, very good. You guys were listening. Have a think about this one. Estimating the age of a fossil, is that historical or operational? Why is it historical? Yeah, very good. Have the same answer? No? Okay, that's all right. Yes, it's historical because you're making a conclusion about something in the past that you didn't see. You're measuring stuff about the fossil now, but you didn't see when it was made or how it got there. So that's historical. And God is not a created being because he, A, has no beginning or end, or B, he was there at the start of time, first appeared. A. Well done. Well done. Well, you guys have done well. Right, I got a bunch of questions from you guys, which was very helpful, thank you. And most of your questions were about dinosaurs. Not surprising. Does anyone know what the difference is between a dinosaur and a crocodilian?
The crocodilian is here right now, so the dinosaurs aren't.
Yeah, can't debate that one. Crocodiles are here, but dinosaurs aren't. Yes, they are. One more. They walk on all fours. Good try. Some dinosaurs, as far as we can tell, walked on all fours as well. They are, yeah, Triceratops. They are a different kind of animal. It's not that crocodiles are just modern dinosaurs. No, they are different kinds of animals. One of the main differences is their legs. So crocodiles and lizards, they walk with their legs out, blah, 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 like that. But dinosaurs, all their legs go straight down underneath them. A bit like an elephant, or like most animals today. So they are a different kind of animal. How do we know they're real? What if they're just mythical creatures? Yes. Fossils. Very good. We get a lot of information from fossils and also from ancient artwork that shows dinosaurs very accurately and written descriptions from a long time ago. Do we find dinosaurs, the word dinosaur, in the Bible? You know about this? Okay.
I don't remember exactly, but I know they had a different word. It was like creature something, or dragons.
Dragons, yes.
And then
good one.
someone interpreted them as dinosaurs recently. So they do have big creatures in the Bible, which people think are dinosaurs, but they didn't make them into dinosaurs.
Very good. Well done. Yes.
Not about dinosaurs, but they said something about it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So the word dinosaur is not in the Bible. That's because the word dinosaur was only invented in 1841. And the Bible wasn't written in 1841. Just a minute. And the reason why the word was invented then is because it was only in the early 1800s when people started digging up these fossils and trying to put them together to figure out what these animals look like. Because usually when you find a fossil, it's not the whole animal, it's just bits and pieces scattered. And it's a lot of work to try and put it all together. And so they needed a name for these creatures that they had started digging up, because they weren't digging them up. The name was dinosaur. Yes?
In Job, there's a creature called the Leviathan.
Well done. Yes, there is one called the Leviathan. Yeah, well, that sounds like a dinosaur.
It is a dinosaur, but they just didn't know its name.
Yeah, they didn't have a special name called dinosaurs. Does anyone know what dinosaur means? Yes. You got half of it right. Terrible.
Terrible.
Yes, terrible lizard. Were you going to say that? Yeah, well done. This is a really bad name for these animals because the vast majority of them ate plants and grass. And did you know the average height of an adult dinosaur was about this big? There were some really big ones, but most of them were small. The average height was about this big. So has anyone seen Jurassic Park, The Lost World? Yeah, velociraptors. They're this big, right? Don't get your education from movies. In real life, velociraptors are about this big. They won't take down the T-Rex. They're more like chicken size, that's right. So don't get education from movies. If this is a terrible cow, horns, this is a terrible, then is that really a terrible lizard? No, one, it's not a lizard. Yeah, that's a real cow. There's cows with bigger horns too. They didn't want to scare you. So they're not really terrible.
I'll tell you that on air conditioner later.
So these animals, they were mostly very gentle. They just ate plants and very small. They're just another animal grazing out in the field. So there is a description of an animal in the Bible, and I'll read it out to you. This is from Job chapter 40. Look at Behemoth. It is a huge animal. I made both of you. This is God talking. It eats grass like an ox. Look at the strength it has in its hips. What power it has in the muscles of its stomach. Its tail sways back and forth like a cedar tree. A cedar tree in that part of the world where Job was, very, very tall tree, very straight, pointy tree. So picture a tail that's very big and straight, and it sways back and forth. The tendons of its thighs are close together. It ranks first among my works. So we're probably talking about a really big animal. It's not afraid when the river roars. It is secure even when the Jordan River rushes against its mouth. Can anyone capture it by its eyes? Can anyone trap it? So this animal, no one can trap it or capture it. It's not afraid of raging waters. It eats grass or plants. It has a huge tail that's really big and really strong. There's only one animal that fits this description, which is a sauropod dinosaur. It's not an elephant or a hippo. They've got puny tails. But an obvious question for us, when were dinosaurs made? Does anyone know, according to the evolutionary story, when were they made? Good try, 400. Between 240 and 65. That's the current story that they'll tell us. A million years ago. According to creation, when were dinosaurs made? A few thousand years ago? Yes. Which day of creation week? 4,000? Yeah, that's closer. Yeah. Day 5. When were people made? Day 6. Land animals were made on the same day. Dinosaurs are land animals. So day 6 of creation week, about 6,000. Yeah. They did exist before Noah's Ark. Yeah. And we'll come to that a bit later. So these are two very different ideas. Two very different ideas. How do we make sense of this? Well, go back to your bucket. There's one more thing you have to know about historical science. Imagine now there's two scientists and they're discussing how long the bucket has been there. And they have a conversation. The guy says, I think the bucket's been there for a couple of years. No, the wood would rot, being in water all that time. Well, we've tested the water for minerals. They could help preserve the bucket. Yes, but I don't think there are enough minerals in the water for that. I think the bucket's been there less than an hour. Too short. The wood looks soaked with water. We've tested the microorganisms in the water. The water's fresh, not stagnant. Nah, I still think it's been sitting there for years. Can you see what they're doing? They're debating, and they're bringing in different scientific facts, aren't they? The wood looks soaked, the microorganisms are there, there's minerals in the water, but they each have a story about the bucket. And they're looking for facts that support their story. So what came first in the conversation? The science or their story? It was their story. Yes, I think the bucket's been there for a couple of years, and then he found some facts to fit that. And the girl found some other facts to fit her story. So a question for you. What's the right way to do historical science? Is it A, you choose one view of history and then you only discuss the facts that can fit it? Or is it B, you find whichever view best explains the most facts overall? or B? B. You would make good scientists. Well done. Because if you choose the wrong view and you're doing A, then you'll get stuck in the wrong idea. Unfortunately, a lot of people actually do the first one, including a lot of scientists. Quiz time. Historical science is heavily influenced by the version of history we use because A, we must have some kind of story to interpret the facts, or B, there is no science, it's all just storytelling. You can call it out, A or B? Well done. The most correct version of history. Is it A, whichever one is most popular right now? Or is it B, whichever one is most attractive to me based on my beliefs? Or is it C? Good job, good job. Right, so we have this question, when were dinosaurs made? Let's start with the evolutionary story. Millions of years. But before we look at their claims, we have to understand what their story is. Now, you might think the story is just evolution. Not exactly. Their story is slow, normal processes over long periods of time. Yeah, so they say, well, it needs millions of years. And so this doesn't include any catastrophe. Think of a giant catastrophe. It's not slow, it's not normal, and it's not over a long period of time. It's a sudden, unique event. So they don't allow catastrophes. So what evidence are they looking for, if that's their story? They're looking for evidence or signs that a long, long time has gone by. Have they found it? Well, some will say they have. And the main place they look for it is in the rock layers. Yes?
If, like, you know about the creation, like you just said on May 6th, all animals were created.
Yes.
If dinosaurs were created, then how scientists knew that dinosaurs had been created on Earth, even though people weren't even born except for Adam and Eve? Like, Adam and Eve weren't fossils.
Good question. Good question. Yeah. Yeah, but there is something else that it's not just the fossils, and we'll have a look at that at the end. Right, we'll keep moving. So they look for millions of years in the rock layers. So in their view, one layer of rock here, this is where all the fossils are, by the way, one layer of rock represents a whole era of Earth's history, going back for millions of years. Why is this one a big number and that was a small number? So they would just say that this layer, I'm not sure if you can see it clearly, there's a different layer. That layer covers about 6 million years. And this one covers 14 million. So you add them up. You add them up as we go.
So between there's 22 million years between that.
So from here to here, they would say 6 million years went by. And then from here to here, they'd say 14 million years went by. And so on. Now, I made up these numbers because I don't know where this photo was taken. But this is the kind of story that they use. So if this is their story, then how were fossils made? Because if these rock layers took a long, long time to form, then you've got a dead animal and it sits there in the dirt, and very slow, normal processes over long periods of time, it slowly gets covered with a bit of sand, a bit of mud, thousands of years, it gets squashed down, eventually becomes rock, and you've got a fossil. Except that's not how the world works. Do we see animals around the world partway through the process of becoming fossils? No. Nowhere has anyone seen this happen. Fossils are not being made today. It's not a normal, slow process. What really happens when an animal dies, a couple of weeks, there's not much left. So the only way you can make a fossil, really, here's Mr. Fishy swimming along. He suddenly gets all this mud dumped on top of him. He's buried, he dies there, you still haven't got a fossil. If you bury your pet goldfish in the backyard, it's not going to become a fossil. It'll just rot in the dirt. A few weeks later, you've got nothing left. To become a fossil, that pile of mud needs to very quickly chemically transform into rock before the creature can decay. Then you've got a fossil. So it's a very unusual event.
So you put lava on a fish which
Lava? Yes, lava can, because lava will quickly cool into rock. And it probably won't burn away the skeleton in that time as well. So you'll get a fossil. Get that? So here are some cool fossils that show us that the fossils were made really quickly. This one is a fish having its lunch. You can see the tail of a little fish poking out of its mouth there. Now, I don't think fish take thousands of years to eat their lunch. This one over here, this one's really cool. This is a Protoceratops and a Velociraptor fighting. The Protoceratops is biting the leg of the other one, and the raptor has its claw in the neck of the Protoceratops. And I don't think they were fighting, and they said, hey, let's play freeze while we slowly become a fossil. They got fossilized very quickly. Down here, you may not see it very clearly, but this little thing here, that's a baby. This is a baby ichthyosaur being born. This poor mama was fossilized while she was giving birth. Very awkward. No, not anymore. Yeah, good one. How does an octopus get fossilized? An octopus doesn't have a skeleton, does it? It's a soft body. You notice all of these, well, not the fish, but these ones, it's just the skeleton. That's because the flesh had rotted away, and by the time the sediment turned into rock, only the skeleton was left. So it probably took a couple of years, maybe, maximum. But this one, there is no skeleton, so that tells us this fossil was made within. Octopus was buried, and within days or weeks, maximum a couple of months, you had complete rock, and it was a fossil. So these tell us the fossil record was made very, very quickly. Yes? The meteor. All right. Yeah, I'll answer that one now. The question is, did a meteor wipe out the dinosaurs? Look, if you believe that dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, then yes, you need something like a meteor. But that story doesn't really make sense, because somehow crocodiles, turtles, birds, flamingos, sharks all survived this meteor, but only the dinosaurs died out. It doesn't really make sense. The Ice Age was part of it. Yeah, that was a big part of it. Another interesting type of fossil are these polystrate fossils. They go up and down, and they cut across many layers of rock. The tree trunk, and the top looks just as good condition as the bottom, which means it didn't take many thousands of years, because the top would rot away. That means that all these rock layers were laid down quickly and together. You may have seen pictures like these, or even if you're driving along the road and they've had to cut through a hill or a mountain, and you can see on the wall as you're driving, you can see the rock layers there. And you might notice that often they're bent, but they're bent without cracks. How do you bend rock without cracking it? It's from the flood. Yes. The point is, all these layers, they were laid down with watery sediment, and so at one point they were still soft, like mud. And then they all had to get bent together like a stack of pancakes, and then turned into rock. So again, all these layers, they didn't take millions of years to get laid down. They were all laid down together. Something else that's very cool, all these animals, what kind of places are they from? Forest, different biomes, yep. All very different ecosystems. You've got shallow seas, you've got the deep sea with the sunfish, you've got forests and rivers. But all these animals are actually fossilized together in the same piece of rock. So whatever created the fossil record, it was able to pick up animals from completely different places, dump them together, bury them, and quickly turn them all into fossils. Very cool. So this girl is now thinking about the right way to do historical science. And she's saying we should really find the story that best explains all of this. And so this other girl, she's thinking, well, sounds like we need to drop the millions of years, because the fossils formed quickly. The animals didn't have time to escape. And the rock layers, well, they formed quickly too. and they formed from flowing water. They were still soft and pliable when they were all bent up. And then different ecosystems were somehow picked up and all mixed up together. With time, some scientists suggest that the rock layers are millions of years old because fossils have date tags attached to them. No. The scientists already chose that the only story is one that uses slow processes over long periods of time. Or C, rocks just look old, so why not say they're millions of years? B, well done. What we observe about fossils and animals tells us that an animal must be fossilized quickly or else it will rot and won't form a fossil at all. I hear some people calling out the answer already. Yes, it is A. And whatever created the fossil record, it was not a slow normal event. Was it because we don't see plants and animals being fossilized today? Or B, animals from completely different places got fossilized together? Or C, many layers of sediment had to be laid down at once? Or D, all of the above? D, very good. So then she's thinking, well, there is a version of history that fits all of that data. It's Noah's flood in the Bible. It was a watery catastrophe that covered the continents, mixed up lots of different creatures and buried them all together. But then the other girl's wondering, Noah's flood, that was only thousands of years ago. Are dinosaurs really that recent? This lady, her name is Dr. Mary Schweitzer. And about 20 years ago, she was digging up a T-Rex fossil. And the leg bone of the T-Rex, the femur, was too big to fit in their transport, so they had to break it open. And she was stunned at what she found inside. You know how bones have marrow inside? So inside the bone, she found all this soft and stretchy, undecayed bone marrow. That's right. And why was she shocked? Because she thought this bone was 65 million years old, and there shouldn't be any of that. And inside the bone marrow, she found blood vessels and even fully intact blood cells. Sorry? Does that mean there are still dinosaurs? Well, not as far as we know.
That means it's a recent, like thousands of years.
Yeah, it means they're recent. So now we've got dozens of different dinosaurs where we've got dino blood, dino DNA, we've got dino skin, and none of this stuff should be there if it's really millions of years old. It looks like it's thousands, not millions. Now some people ask, well, there were some really big dinosaurs, so how on earth did Noah get the big ones on the ark? He took the babies. Even the biggest dinosaur came from an egg about this big. And as you can see from this chart, we can analyze the dinosaur bones to see how quickly they grew at different ages. And so all Noah would have done is taken a young dinosaur, which works well because he needed it to make lots of babies after the flood. And an old big one wouldn't do that. Why they all died out? Let me... Okay, very good question. A big reason why they died out is from, well, there's a few factors. Why do creatures go extinct these days? Lots of animals are extinct. What are some reasons? Yes. Hunting. Climate change, change of ecosystems. Dangerous, because they're dangerous, so we kill them. Yep. Deforestation, yeah, their environment gets ruined and destroyed. All very good reasons. So one of the big changes that happened in history after the flood is an ice age. So that probably would have caused a lot of the dinosaurs to die out. But then we're going to have a look at some interesting information. But before we do that, do these animals look like dinosaurs?
How did they survive?
But all these animals are actually buried with the dinosaurs in the same rock. So we're often shown pictures like this where there was an age of the dinosaurs where it was only dinosaurs. But not according to the fossil record, all these animals were alive with the dinosaurs. So really what this picture should look like is a normal looking forest with birds and squirrels and possums, and then over behind the bush there's a dinosaur, and behind the trees there's another dinosaur. That's what the fossil record would tell us. So when you see pictures like this, remember, they're telling you a story. It's historical science. They have a story in their mind, and they're telling you a story, not necessarily the facts. We'll skip that. Well, we're almost done. I mentioned earlier that one of the reasons we know dinosaurs existed is from ancient artwork. Here is some of the artwork. Now, the interesting thing, it doesn't just match dinosaurs very, very closely, but no one was digging up fossils at that time. Remember, early 1800s is when they started digging them up. And none of the artwork presents the dinosaurs as just skeletons or fossils. It's always full-bodied animals, often with skin colors and skin texture. And they're often presented alongside other normal animals like cows and dogs and horses.
The Shang Dynasty in China.
BC. I think you're right. It is BC. I made a mistake with that one. So this is powerful evidence that dinosaurs and people lived together for a long time. I think the latest example is probably somewhere around this. So it means that the last dinosaurs would have been killed off hundreds of years ago. Yes. No, there is a dragon in the Chinese zodiac.
When was the Chinese zodiac named? Because that could make sense.
All right. Nearly finished. Nearly finished. So, what have we got? Dinosaur fossils have soft tissue, blood cells and skin. These are not millions of years old. Dinosaurs are buried with modern plants and animals. There was no age of dinosaurs. Noah could easily take the baby ones on board the ark with him. And there's evidence that people and dinosaurs lived together. All right, the last slide, and this is a very important message. Usually, historical science is wrapped up in the story that the author wants you to believe. So your job as a student of science is to learn to separate the truth from the story. And to do that, you need to ask good questions. All right. Well, thank you for your participation. You asked very good questions. Are there any other questions that you'd like to ask? Yes, I am.
And I watched this documentary about how people said that and how they found like different pieces of like Lucy. And it said like that it wasn't true because there were just different parts of different animals and stuff. So it wasn't actually from us. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, Lucy was probably just a monkey, a regular monkey.
And they said that she had white eyes.
White eyes.
Yes, that had like white.
Ah. What's your name?
Rachel.
Rachel. So Rachel's asking about Lucy. Have you heard of Lucy? Apparently our monkey ancestor, if we believe the evolutionary story. So that Lucy, Rachel's made a very good point. Often when you see pictures or in a museum, you'll see a statue of Lucy. They'll give her eyes like ours, white eyes. What kind of eyes do monkeys usually have, or always have? Just black eyes. Yeah, like most other animals. Now, we can't tell what eyes this animal had from the skeleton. All we can see is the hole where the eyes went. So what they've done is they've taken their story and they've put their story into the picture of Lucy. So you have to remember, when you see those pictures, you're not looking at just scientific facts there. You're looking at their story as well. All right, last question. How did dinosaurs die? Ice Age and hunting would have been a massive one. And hunting, some of them were big and scary, of course, so they would have been hunted. And a lot of the other ones would have just been hunted for their meat and then changes in their environment. All right. Shall we leave it there? All right, one more.
How do you like, if you're hunting, like, and there were pterodactyls,
Mhm.
yeah, wouldn't you have to have perfect aim? Wouldn't they just be flying?
And you shoot birds, Dion.
And you
Do
do
how do people shoot
Dion,
birds?
and that guy kills you with a stone.
One stone.
Yeah, slingshots. Yeah, yeah. Well, people kill birds today while they're flying, and they're much smaller, and they can do it without guns as well. So pterodactyls would have been the same size or bigger. All right, one more question right at the back. Not currently. Currently, my job is to help university students get closer to Jesus, but I used to work in a science lab. All right. Thank you all. Well done. Give yourselves a clap.
Okay, can I have